The future of a nation lies in the school bags of our children. This is a quote by Dr. Eric Williams, former Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Dr. Kevin Sarran, and I am the Director of Youth Progression at the National Transmission Alliance. I was asked to share with you all today some of the issues that are plaguing the youths of Trinidad and Tobago, and some of the ideas on how we plan to deal with this. One of the questions I often get asked, and when people first see me, is what does the National Transmission Alliance plan to do differently? Now, this is something I'm sure a question that have been on your minds. This is why you all are here today. You all would like to hear what the National Transmission Alliance plan to do differently. Well, I want to waste no time. I want to dive straight into the meat of the matter. The first topic I want to touch on is actually the education system in Trinidad and Tobago. In Trinidad and Tobago, we have what I like to term a very educated but jobless society. Let me repeat that. We have in Trinidad and Tobago a very educated but jobless society. How many of you all here in the audience, just a quick show of hands, have children that are either pursuing either secondary school education, primary school education, even tertiary school education? Quite a lot, right? Now, I want you to take you back. Imagine 20 years back, where when you passed common entrance, back then they had common entrance. 20 years back, when you passed your common entrance exam, you could have secured a job with just passing your common entrance exam. 15 years ago, you could have gotten by with just some O-levels, whether you had 3 O-levels, 5 O-levels, that was enough to get you by. 10 years ago, you needed A-levels, and that would have gotten you by. 5 years ago, you now need a degree to stand out from the rest of people. Today, we are at a turning point in our education system where right now you must have at least 2 degrees before an employee even looks at your son or daughter. I'm sure you all are quite aware of the cost of a degree. It costs almost about $30,000 a year to achieve a degree. And if you have 2 children, 3 children, the cost adds up, and it's quite a lot, right? The solution, to me, is actually a very simple one, and maybe it's a bit too simple for somebody in authority to take it seriously. Like any successful business model, you have a demand and you have a supply. No one wants to produce a product and not have somebody buy it from you. And this is the current situation that we have in Trinidad and Tobago with our jobs. We are producing really good tertiary level candidates, and they're coming out without jobs. I'm sure everybody has some relative that they know that has a degree and they have no jobs. The situation is an ever-changing one. And a lot of people might say, let's just open up some vocational schools. Let's just do, close down some institutions and let's open up some plumbing centers, electrical centers, whatever it may be. I want to tell you that that is simply a temporary fix. And let me go on to explain by giving you an example. If you know that Trinidad and Tobago needs a certain amount of plumbers, let's say they need 1,000 plumbers every year, and you continue to do this for 5 years, at the end of 5 years, you're going to have 5,000 plumbers. But what will happen when that job as a plumber becomes saturated? The people who are in the 6,000, 7,000 range, they're not going to have jobs, and that is currently the situation that we have here in Trinidad and Tobago. So you might ask, what does the NTA plan to do fix this? One of the ideas that I have proposed so far is actually what I would like to term a continuous population job census. This means that it's an ongoing survey between the business sector, and the business sector is actually responsible for your demand, and also that of the academic institutions, which is responsible for your supply. So only if there's a demand, then you supply. Ladies and gentlemen, it simply means that if your child has already started a career in a particular field, that there will be a job waiting for them at the end of this, and not the other way around. The COVID pandemic has forced Trinidad and Tobago to level up with our first world counterparts. The digital classroom finally made its way to our shores, out of pure necessity. But I found personally that this was greeted with somewhat of a reluctant leadership. They quoted some figures of the last SCA exam about 2 years ago. They said in 2020, they look at how many people passed half the SCA, achieved the 50% pass mark. They said 63% of the candidates who wrote that SEA exam in 2020 achieved the 50% pass mark, 53% in 2021, and 37% in 2022. It means that most of the people who write SEA basically failed, right? And that is clearly a problem that we're having. With any new technology, it is expected that there will be some sort of a transition period. And one must go through that, and you must have to conquer the obstacles that you have in your way. After a mere 2 years of online teaching, the online portals in Trinidad and Tobago are completely closed. We have gone back and away from online teaching, back to blackboard and chalk and duster. The citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, and I'm sure you all could speak here, that we have already gone through the hardship of purchasing the laptops, getting the Wi-Fi. Some of the parents may not even know how to use a computer. They went and learned how to use a computer just so that they could show their children how to go about logging in to get their classroom information. Let me put this into perspective of how far back of a nation that we are right now. The University of Phoenix in the United States first started teaching online classes 33 years ago. This is 1989 I'm talking about. That's how far back we are. And we have taken a step merely after 2 years. A step back, that is. Thousands of students, parents, teachers, they commute to work daily. This leads to a build-up in traffic. It's almost like you're doing a job before you reach to work, a job when you're at work, and a job when you're coming back from work, right? This coupled with the rise in fuel prices, the overcrowding in schools, the COVID pandemic, you see where I'm going with this. It's almost like we are aiming to sabotage ourselves. Are we aiming to break the record of being a nation that is furthest behind? I sincerely hope that is not the case. There have been many surprises over these last couple of years in Trinidad and Tobago, but this one that I'm about to tell you, this one takes it up. The last SEA exam they had 37% of people pass this exam. It was proposed that they are going to allow everybody into Form 1 and Form 2. And that's fine. But now they're proposing that at the beginning of Form 2, that they want to have something called a lower proficiency exam. Now, if you could imagine, at the beginning of Form 2, you have this exam to tell you that you're okay to come out from SEA. The psychological effect of this on a child in the formative years will encourage that child to believe that they have failed at life, and to create a mental challenge. And we are not going to see the results of that right now. This is something that we'll see the results of maybe 15, 20 years from now. The solution for that would have been a very simple one, to just accept the things that we cannot change and to work towards improving the future. In trying too hard to appear that they were doing something to fix the problem and to fix the situation, they have committed the ultimate sin, where improper perfection is actually the enemy of good. Now, I know my time here is limited, but I want to touch on one more topic before I close off. Trinidad and Tobago is not a sporting nation. I think we could all agree on that, and for many reasons, and it's not the fault of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. We have opted merely to celebrate the achievements of individuals who accomplish a medal. When we see them on TV, we claim them, that's ours. Anybody who gets international recognition, yeah, them is Trini, and that's how we go. In every other part of the world, sports is actually seen as a career. In Trinidad and Tobago, sports is seen as something you do after school, and that clearly is a problem that we have in Trinidad and Tobago. I remember about 4 years ago, I had an encounter with an athlete. I went to a football game, and he told me that he got $50 for every game that he played for his club. And he did an 8 to 4. He was a mason, a joiner, electrician. Anything you would give him, he would do. He's just looking to make ends meet. And then he would go training from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. Imagine these athletes are now competing with world-class athletes whose only job is just to do sport. And still we are performing. Imagine what we could do if we support our athletes in Trinidad and Tobago. Now this one's another personal one. Of the 5 stadiums in Trinidad and Tobago, the 5 major ones, and I'll call them out: the Atabolan Stadium, the National Aquatic Center, the Velodrome, the Hazy Crawford Stadium, and the Larry Gomes Stadium. Can you believe, it is my personal experience I'm telling you here, can you believe that these institutions are $1 million and collectively are $1 billion institutions that are not open to the public of Trinidad and Tobago? I have tried to go to exercise at the Atabolan Stadium and it's simply not open to the public. They are operating as though these institutions belong to them. These institutions, these $1 billion institutions, were paid for with your money, Trinidad and Tobago. And I find that shouldn't be the case. Imagine trying to craft your child and tell them, you know, sport is the way to go and you could become a good athlete, but you don't have these facilities open for them to get the experience. It's almost like you go for a job interview and it's your first job, you've never had any experience, and then they are simply telling you that you must have experience to get the job, but nobody's giving you experience. That is what we are facing here, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to leave you all with a very powerful message on closing, and I want you all to think about this on your drive home. All right? We cannot continue to use the same building blocks of yesterday and expect a different outcome tomorrow. All right? I want to repeat that one more time before I close off. We cannot continue to use the same building blocks of yesterday and expect a different outcome tomorrow. Guys, trust us. Trust me when I say better days are coming. Believe. Thank you.